Welcome back to Flying Blind. I'm Austin.
And I'm Jordan.
And today, we're talking about something controversial. What are we talking about, Jordan?
Adrien Brody just won an Oscar for Best Actor for The Brutalist. And it's confirmed by the director himself. They used AI to enhance his performance, specifically the Hungarian accent. How do you feel about that? Knowing that he won for his performance and a robot did some of it.
It's wild because the Oscars was already disappointing. That makes it even more disappointing to me. I guess, where do we feel the line is on AI in creativity or like production, not film like that? Because like, how much of the translated part was imperative to his performance?
Yeah, well, it's probably important to just backpedal and figure out where exactly it was used. So apparently, according to the editor and the director themselves, they used it to enhance when they were speaking in Hungarian. They just wanted to make sure that the dialect was right, the pronunciation was right, and the editor is noted saying that he is a native speaker, so he fed some of his voice into this AI platform, and it just helped improve Adrian's pronunciations and Jones's as well. But it didn't stop there. I think I would have been okay with that, but then you look at some of the generative AI that they used.
There was generative AI used.
Yes. So this is a movie about an architect.
Yes.
And there's going to be a lot of material being made to draw blueprints.
Of course, an architect should be drawing architectural drawings.
Well, guess what?
No, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
They use generative AI
to
enhance and add to some of the drawings and blueprints throughout the movie as well.
Okay. Let me unpack that for a sec. They use it to enhance or they use it to prep?
I think there is a mix of both human-made and AI-made material present in the film.
Okay, so to confirm, we think that there is actual generative AI being displayed on camera or in the final picture of the film.
Yes.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. So where is the line?
We've crossed the line at that point.
Fair enough.
AI is such a touchy subject, especially in film and TV, because it's difficult to see the root of AI. Like, it's difficult to see where it came from. So, like, a lot of, executives at Netflix or, Paramount, etc., they will not touch anything generative AI because they don't know where it came from. They can't, anything that's shot by Paramount or by Netflix, in a lot of cases, like, they own the rights to that content.
Right.
If they're creating drawings for The Brutalist, they will own all those drawings and own all the rights to those drawings. But if that AI model that they use is trained off of thousands of different drawings from thousands of different architects around the world, and they don't have any credits to any of those thousands of architects or artists, then Paramount, Netflix, whoever the distribution or production company can't own those rights, and therefore they're making money off of artists that aren't being credited.
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely a big proponent to why people are against it. With these models that are using examples from all over the place, it just is untrackable. I think there's a ton of good uses for AI. I mean, we're seeing tools get enhanced by artificial intelligence. Like, I think we've had conversations about this before, about cleaning up audio or tracking. Like, all these tools are using AI to enhance how they work. It helps with workflows and even thinking of things that are just mundane pre-production things like writing documents and filtering information and compiling all of this stuff together. I think there's a ton of uses for it that make sense. It helps take out some of the most like headache prone parts of filmmaking, and it can make it more accessible. But then when it starts dipping into the creative part,
well, that's where that line has to come back.
Yeah,
in.
right.
Because like I agree. AI is super cool for those use cases. I know we talked about it earlier, but if someone sends us terrible quality audio that we have to use for a film or a video, we can use AI that will remove the background noise. It will completely isolate the audio that we or the person who sent it to us has recorded. That's their audio, it's still their voice, but it's now isolated that voice and removed everything else. Great, still their voice, fantastic. I feel like that's a very safe use. That hasn't passed or crossed the line, right? But if you're now taking AI, generating somebody else's voice and words, and then you're using that in a film, okay, well, is that still somebody's voice?
Right. So
is that still...
That's actually a really interesting point, because we talked to somebody else off camera just before this, and they brought up a really good point. When it comes to adding to performances, if we were to voice modulate somebody manually, is the tool of the AI just making our workflow easier? So does that actually not make this that controversy at the end of the day? Because we could do it. We could change the voice notes and the inflections and make a voice print and manipulate it by hand. I guess the tricky part is knowing where it comes from. And in this case, we do know where the source material came from. The editor themselves fed their own voice into the program to help manipulate it. So now, to be honest, when we came in here, I was ready to be like, no, this sucks. I hate it. I don't want to touch it. But the more you think about it, maybe there are applications at play that make this interesting.
Interesting. I see where you're going with that. People have been modulating voices forever. I think, though, your initial point is, maybe the equivalent of like when they do auto-tune on a voice. Like if T-Pain does auto-tune,
sure,
is that now no longer his voice? Because I think according to the record label, that is his voice. Sure. And that he owns those rights or that style or whatever that is.
T-Pain has gone on record saying he would be nothing without auto-tune.
It's been said by producer Josh. Is auto-tune AI? No. Exactly. Exactly. I don't know. Maybe it defeats that argument. I don't know. I do think there are different ways of doing things. Like if we deepen the shit out of someone's voice to the point where it's still unrecognizable, when we roll those credits, are we going to credit the original person's voice? Because we would.
I guess, yeah. I guess it comes down to how far you push it. Because if you're changing it entirely, then what's the point of the original performance at all? But I think that's the distinction. We didn't replace or anything like that. It was just to tweak and enhance. So I could see there being, a little bit of leeway there. Where for me it gets really troubling is when it's completely generative. And even when people use their own, I guess, libraries to train their own models, even if you know where all the material comes from, it still feels a little murky to me. I mean, I use AI. I use ChatGPT to help me compile notes and things like that. Maybe I've put my own personal thing on it, but I won't let it write the scripts for me. I just won't do it. Yeah. I want to write that I get fulfillment out of.
Yeah.
But when it comes to something like this, is the tool just being used to help make the job a little easier? Because again, I believe that this probably is part of a process that could have been done manually.
No matter what the budget is, you're telling me they couldn't have found anyone. If the editor was Hungarian, you're telling me they could have found anyone to help with this as opposed to using AI? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, so.
Do we know if there was a credit in the credit reel of the Hungarian editor's voice being used? Did they credit AI? Did they credit him?
I'm not sure.
Adrien Brody had the longest Oscar acceptance speech in history. And I commend him for shutting that music down because literally, I've seen it over so many years. I don't think anyone's ever been able to stop that music. But Adrien Brody was like, no, shut up. It's my time. Shut it down. He had all that time. Did he thank his editor for his voice? I just want to know.
Hey, that's actually a pretty decent point.
I don't think he did.
Touching back on the editor, he has, I think, a pretty good opinion on this as well. When it comes to the use of AI, especially on an independent film like this one, when it came to making choices that just made sense for how they were going to work their process, he's a big fighter for the fact that maybe transparency is key. When it comes to the use of AI, let's just say that we're using it and how we're using it. Instead of making these weird blurred lines of whether or not it's okay or unethical or whatever, let's just come out and say it. I used it in this way, and this is how it benefited us in this, and how I used it as a tool.
You know
and
what?
Like maybe that'll set a good understanding of why, now we know how it can be used. We're not playing in this weird gray area of maybe, big Hollywood movies, chopping half of the writing team off and then just sloughing it off into an AI model.
Totally. Because that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I agree. I think that's a great point. I feel like there needs to be something like that in place and just open dialogue on that. I think it's a good point. when they replaced Harrison Ford's face in the latest Indiana Jones, was that AI?
I have no idea.
Producer Chris, producer Josh, confirmed. This is a beautiful case of AI. Seriously beautiful, because sure, they used AI for his face, and yes, he got roasted for the deepfake. Everyone roasted him. They roasted the movie for sure. He didn't win an Oscar, so that's obviously a big difference here. But they use machine learning models to train off of years of Disney footage that they owned. That's the difference. They used all of the footage that they had of Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford to create a younger looking version of him. That is a great use of AI, in my opinion. I feel like that is very safe because AI can be used for companies to, go through all of their stuff that they own. And that way the copyright for it is still owned by them because it's being trained off of all their stuff. If you don't have the rights to these things, then that's a different story. That's wrong. Because you did mention the generative AI part, and I want to get into that because that's severely messed up.
Yeah, this is where I think it gets muddy for me. So, like we mentioned earlier, when it becomes generative and you start training your own models, what are we doing? Like, is that totally removing the creative process? You're just clicking this button. I know it's not as easy as that. You're training that. But it still seems weird and murky and kind of messed up
Definitely.
to me.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Definitely, there's a gray area. 100%.
Yeah.
But if this AI model any AI model is fully being trained off of data, photos, images, videos, whatever, that is owned by one entity, that is a very safe and, in my opinion, ethical use of AI. It is, because these models aren't being trained outside of that on something else. Like, it's not going to bring something external to your, company or studio or whatever. It is only going to bring what it has access to. So if Disney is all of a sudden developing some sort of AI off of all of the scripts or songs they've ever written for any movie or any musical, and all of a sudden their AI starts creating music that sounds like Disney, well, sure, it might not be authentic or creative in some ways, but
well, I mean,
it's trained off
I
of
think that
Disney.
brings me back to like the transparency thing. If this is the route that we're going, which seems kind of inevitable, I think it's just really important that we know what's real or not.
I agree. There should be at least a mention of it, especially in your 5-minute and 47-second Oscar speech. Just saying.
I think it would probably be worth a nod to them. Yeah,
I agree.
Building off of the training models and generative AI, I think it begs the question. When it comes to the critical reception of these movies, Brutalist obviously won some awards, and publicly it seems to be more widely accepted than, I guess, the use case of Indiana Jones. Do you think that, I guess, the popularity, the reception, or the performance of a project shifts your opinion on whether or not using the generative AI is okay or not?
Okay, I don't think so. First off, I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with how critically acclaimed the movie is. But my first question to you is, who are these critics that acclaim these movies? Who are the ones that decide that Emilia Perez and The Brutalist need to win all these awards? I feel like there were so many better movies that came out this year. Just saying. I mean, the reason I say this is because we're talking about the Oscars with Adrien Brody and Brutalist, whatever, but it's not just the Oscars. SAG, BAFTA, Golden Globes, Emmys, like everyone's talking about and giving awards to Emilia Perez and The Brutalist and whatever other terrible movie came out this year. A lot of good ones, but the awards are in the wrong places. I don't understand that. But if it's something like Sharknado used AI, okay, we know what we're getting into going into Sharknado. I'm just going to say that, obviously. But I don't think it being bad is the difference maker. I think it's the movie's already bad. If The Brutalist used AI and it actually looked like AI, I feel like that is a given. But I also think that I didn't catch AI. I didn't even know about AI being used in this movie until 20 minutes ago. So I feel like it's not like they pulled the wool over our eyes. It's the fact that they used it in a clearly, respectful, maybe not respectful, but like in a proper way.
Right.
Like it's not like they used it to like, again, people shit on Indiana Jones because I feel like it looked pretty bad in some scenes.
So
right?
this actually makes me think,
Was it a bad movie? I don't know.
I think a good comparison point would be, I think just using CGI. When it comes to like adding AI like CGI to your toolbox, is it more about how it's applied and its use case?
Yes.
Maybe when we're looking at the Brutalist and how it was used to enhance something to a certain degree that was negligible in terms of its screen presence, time, whatever, performance, versus Indiana Jones when it looked bad, it looked poor in its use, which I guess has an overall effect on your perception of it. If you can tell and it's obvious and it detracts, maybe that's a big proponent to it. Because the same thing with CGI, like you can use a ton of it and it could look amazing, and you could use a little of it and it could look really bad. So the balancing act of how you use it and its use case is definitely really important. Like who's the director
well put.
of Mindhunter? It's Fincher.
Oh, you're right, David Fincher.
Like if using that CGI kind of argument, if we look at a show like Mindhunter, which ended up being one of the most expensive shows on Netflix,
they also designed a camera for it.
Yeah,
just so you know.
At a glance,
Crazy.
You'd be like, where's the CGI? Because apparently it has hundreds of VFX shots per episode.
I actually did not know
you
this.
don't see it.
Whoa.
Because Fincher's such a perfectionist. He would essentially build these sets and streets and cars and remove signs and add trees and sky in almost every shot in that show.
Wow. Okay, I knew a couple of these. But I didn't know it was like there's that much VFX in this. That's crazy.
But you don't notice.
No.
So you're not shitting on bad CGI because
No.
it looks like real life.
Yeah, but if David Fincher used AI in Mindhunter, and I didn't notice, or the general public didn't notice, I feel like that's fine. I think it's the problem here is that it got leaked, obviously, and now people are shitting on Brutalist because,
But I guess that comes. I'm still leaning towards the transparency. As
I
long
agree.
as we
I
know
agree.
the source and where it's coming from and how it's being used, I think that's a really important distinction of whether or not we should be upset about it. But if we have a movie next year that stars a metahuman, then maybe I'd have more of a problem with it.
Yeah, honestly, and maybe, how would you feel if the crew of Brutalist put a credit at the bottom saying of the bottom or the top or the first slide when they go to the roll of the credits that were like AI was used in the making of this. We are not able to confirm which artists were used or models were trained off of, but we thank you for the work that was used for these specific shots.
Yeah.
If it was something like that, is that too far-fetched?
It would help,
rude?
but I think I think there's still a responsibility to know, especially with the models that they're using or training.
Agreed.
I think in this case, like the editor was using his own voice, help train the model. And
That
things
part
like
I'm
that.
okay with.
That
I
is
guess.
is a little better. And then I don't know if maybe they fed their own drawings into the AI to help them create new blueprints and things like that. I'm not sure, but I think would be really, really helpful to just add that kind of to their process and being able to flag those things. I don't know of a big emblem at the start that says generative AI
Hey,
was used
I know at the start. I would put it at the
fix
end.
everything.
I'd put it at the end, but
It would be probably helpful. Actually, there might be someone setting the precedent right away. James Cameron, for the next installment of Avatar, said that it will start with a note that says there was no use of generative AI.
Interesting. I mean, saying no use of generative AI is like just rub it in everyone's faces, I guess. But how would you feel if it was the opposite and it said
But
people
I
were
think
announcing
that's
AI
the
will be
thing,
used?
right? Now it can go both ways. It's the same reason why they have, the disclaimers from the animal handling that says no animals were harmed, right? This is a standard, and if it's missing, then you can assume. So if they no longer have the stamp that says no generative AI use, at least then you can speculate.
I guess last point on this is if Netflix came out and said the final season of Stranger Things used AI, would that change the perception that everybody has for Stranger Things? Would that change your perception? Or is that just something where, quick answer, like, was that a yes, you'd still watch it and love it? Or would you be like, oh, fuck this show, it used AI.
I would probably still watch it, but I would want to know what they used it on.
Okay. Valid point.
Yeah.
I think we have our answer. Transparency in AI for film and TV is the answer.
Mhm.
Okay. Well put.